Sandra, welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is supposed to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual. I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit that great subscribe button right here, right now. Please hit that bell icon so you get notified of every time I go live. So in a moment, we're going to be reviewing this movie. But first of all, if you didn't know who I am Sandra Bellamy, author of this awesome Asexual Perspectives 47 Asexual Stories book, available on Amazon. So tonight's movie is 2012. Oh my gosh, I've got so much to tell you about this movie. First of all, if you didn't know who I am, like I said, I'm the author of that book, and I also I've been helping adults on this channel since 2015 now. So yes, this channel's the place to be for education about asexuality. I also do movie reviews. I particularly focus on no sex movie reviews because I'm asexual. I'm a sex repulsed asexual. I lack sexual attraction. And basically, I try to find movies that don't have any sexual nudity in them because I personally don't like that. And you would have thought in this very sex-filled society and world, it's very difficult to find. But I managed to find lots of movies with no sex in them. They usually are certificate 12s. So anyway, this movie, 2012. Now, if you don't want spoilers, please do not continue to watch this video because I'm going to spoil it for you. But I have to say, this does not disappoint. This movie is supposed to be the greatest disaster movie ever filmed, right? With this, it's supposed to be the most amazing, spectacular disaster movie with special effects, and it did not disappoint. I have to say, this is the best ever disaster movie I have ever seen in terms of special effects, and the storyline just was, with the special effects, the amount of tragedy, I guess, the amount of, like stuff in this, like things blowing up, things like demolishing, things burning on fire, and cities just being totally destroyed, was absolutely epic. I mean, you cannot get a more visually stunning masterpiece than this one in terms of disaster movies. It's basically an action adventure disaster movie, and I was actually in tears partway through it. So the film focuses on this family in the beginning, and John Cusack is like pretty much the main character in this, though there are other main characters, but he really finds the story through his eyes, mostly his character's eyes, I should say. And so anyway, he is a chauffeur to this Russian guy. Obviously, Russia's in the news for very bad things at the moment. And the Russian guy in this isn't particularly nice guy at all. But obviously, that's a bit of a sensitive topic talking about this at the moment with this movie. The Russian guy happens to not make it through the movie. I will tell you that. But, yeah, it's a sore point, isn't it, at the moment with what's going on with Ukraine and everything as I'm filming this live. So I won't go too much into that, but he doesn't actually survive. But you think he's going to. But anyway, moving swiftly on. So John Cusack's character plays the main character, and he is a chauffeur to this guy who's Russian with their two children, and he chauffeurs their children around basically. And he is divorced, and he has a son and daughter, and his ex-wife is remarried. And we enter the story where he is basically kind of like not called dad anymore by his son, but his daughter still is really daddy, and he takes them out away for the weekend, and they're meant to be going camping. But while he's going camping, he's trying to find the spot that his ex used to go to, and he takes the two kids with him, and he goes into this place where it says no admittance, and he doesn't care. He climbs over the electric fence, which isn't electrified, and then the children have to climb over with him. So he's been very irresponsible at this point. And anyway, he finds out that there's a military, like army type people everywhere, and it's been cornered off, and there's something going on and he doesn't know what it is. And you subsequently find this guy who's in charge, which he's a geometrist. It's like a scientist, and you find out that this like scientist geometrist guy, he is kind of overseeing this, that what's going on, why it's been cornered off, what the hazards are, what's coming. Excuse me. And then anyway, the guy, John Cusack, who plays the main character, his character is actually really good in this. I thought he played the part really, really well. And anyway, he's a writer in the storyline, and the guy's a geometrist. He actually is in awe of this guy because he's got a copy of his book. So yeah, so he gets the like army people to escort them back to safety, him and his kids. And when he goes camping on the outskirts of this place, because he can no longer be in it, he comes across this guy who's very, very far out, crazy guy, you think. But he's got this big camper van, and he basically is saying that, the world's coming to an end, and there's the people that knew about the world coming to an end have been killed. And he reveals a list of all these people that have been killed that knew the world was going to come to an end because they want to shut the people up, because it's no good getting that out in the world. It would be really bad, and anarchy and all that lot. So anyway, he said he had actually got given a map by one of the people that was killed, and it's got a map of all the big spaceships and vehicles, basically. Well, he said they're big spaceships, and you've got to be kind of really wealthy usually to get on these spaceships when the world ends, because obviously there's going to be some people that survive, and the survivors are going to be the people on these ships. So he's got the map, and then you cut to this, and he's told all this to John Cusack's character. And so John Cusack's character goes to pick up, he's picked up the kids. He goes to take them back early, because what's happened is the mother and her new husband, her not John Cusack's character, but her other, her actual husband, and nowadays they're in this basically supermarket together, and they're saying that he's saying he feels like the relationship's a bit falling apart, because she always gets weird when her ex comes round. And anyway, as that happens, the actual floor opens up of the supermarket, and there's a crack underneath, and this is like the start of all the world like kind of crumbling. And they've had that geometrist and his friends, and they've been monitoring the situation, and basically the whole world is actually coming to an end, but they don't want to tell the whole world that, because obviously it'll be chaos and they can't save everyone. And so John Cusack's character, because he talked to the crazy guy, who actually turns out not to be crazy after all in that way, with this big camper van, we've got found out all these people have died. When they found out about what's happening to the end of the world, they were shut up by the government, basically. So he then realizes that what the crazy guy was saying is coming true. And so he, when he goes to drop the kids off, because the mother wants them back sooner, because there's problems, and she just feels unsafe, like she wants them back. He then realizes, when he starts hearing stuff on the radio about big spaceships, or overhears someone talking or something about them, that this guy's telling the absolute truth. So he goes back to try and get his ex-wife, the husband, and the kids to come with him. And he phones up first of all and says, pack your stuff, we've got to leave, we've got to go now. And his ex-wife doesn't believe him. And anyway, by the time he gets to his ex-wife with the husband and the kids, the whole place has been like this earthquake, and it's just like they're all hiding under the table, and things are starting to fall around them. And so he gets them all in the car, and they have to get away, and you see all the you see everything start to crumble and crumble and crumble, and all the buildings, all the people and the cars are all starting to like go into the sea and go head off bridges, dangling down, and and it's brilliant because John Cusack's character is literally driving whilst everything, all these buildings are falling in front of him. Big signs like donut signs from a donut shop. All these people are like scrambling, trying to get out of their cars, but they're ending up, bridges are ending up collapsing. They're ending up dangling off the bridges. There's just like loads of water it's starting to go everywhere. The tides like overflowing the land, and and he's really speeding up to get going, and eventually they come to this place that's got planes, and the guy who he says to the guy, take my watch and get, in exchange for a plane, I'll be back. So once he's got, this is what he said a bit earlier when he before he went to pick up the kids this time, and the ex-wife and her husband, and when they're all in the car, like, he then drives to this plane, and the pilot is dead, and the guy who's now his ex-wife's husband has had about 2 flying lessons, so he nominates his like nemesis, if you like, that other new husband, to be the pilot. And so they go up in this plane, and as they're going up, it really is hard to get off the runway, really, really difficult. And eventually, it really takes off, but it takes ages to take off, and they're in the air for a bit. And as they're in the air, you see all these like buildings come down, all the water's caving in over the landscape, like buildings are on fire, and it's just utter chaos. And you can just feel everything feels like it's coming in on top of you, because you're like in the plane with them, and you're experiencing all the stuff that's debris that's coming down, and the plane is only just making it through in between buildings that are crashing down, and all the glass is smashing to the floor through the ground, through the when the high-rise buildings. And it's just sensational. You just feel like everything's caving in on you, and you've got to get the hell out of there. And it kind of like the action just builds and builds and builds. And when they're in this plane, it's like they're running out of gas, so they've got to stop. And where they stop, John Cusack's character, he tries to ask the guy to stop near where he met the crazy guy, where his kids were camping out with him. They told him about this map of where these big planes are to get. Sorry, they're like big planes, big ships. Actually, they turn out to be big ships, like they turn out to be arks, like Noah's Ark. But in the beginning, you kind of think they're ship. You think, well, they're ships, but you kind of like, I don't know, you kind of think they're big aircraft or something. That's what I was thinking. But they're actually big ships rather than big aircraft. But most of the film I was thinking, they're going to go on these big planes. But actually, in the end, it's big ark, which is like massive boats that are meant to be, all the doors are locked so they can go under sea and stuff like that and still make it fine. But there's problems with that later. So anyway, so he's in this plane, and then they remember where the crazy guy is. So he goes and actually tries to find this guy. He takes the daughter with him and leaves the new husband with his ex-wife with his son, at this runway where there is actually fuel, so that tells his ex-wife to fuel up. Meanwhile, he's gone off to try and find this crazy guy with his van with a map of where all these like ships are. And so and when he finds this guy, literally the guy is out in the middle of like the hills, and he's got this all radio gear wired up to him like satellite, because he's projecting all this radio waves everywhere, and is going down in history as being there in the middle of the volcanic action, because there's volcanoes that start erupting. There's tsunamis that start coming in later on in the movie. And as this volcano is erupting, this kind of crazy guy, he's there soaking up, going, yeah, man, like, I'm here, and I'm time live, and this will go down in history. And, you know, it's beautiful, beautiful. And all this volcano is erupting. And it's more, you know, it's like loads, it looks like loads of mini volcanoes everywhere. And there's orange lava flying everywhere, and it's all coming rippling up to him, and he's just there going, hey man, you know, I'm broadcasting this live, this will go down in history, blah blah blah, this is so beautiful and magnificent, blah, blah, blah. And you know, you can, you know, he doesn't care that he's going to die. All he cares about is being the first one to kind of broadcast it to everyone with this equipment that's all over him. He's like a radio signaling of himself, you know, while loads of other radio signals have gone down, stopped working. Because whole countries, continents have been wiping out, basically. And so, you know, I did think that the volcano action was very, very good. It was all erupting. And then John Cusack's character, he was basically saying to the crazy guy, like, are you coming with us? And the guy was like, no, he's staying because it's so beautiful. And so John Cusack's character then got back in the camper van with a daughter, and they're rushing down this bridge, like rocky bridge where all the lava's flowing and volcanoes erupting, and he's going down this bridge with his daughter, and literally the volcanic ash is flying everywhere, and there's great big like flames of flames of orange volcanic stuff erupting everywhere, and you know, it's pushing basically towards the vehicle, and he's trying to get his kid back to the small plane. It's only a small plane at this point, with the ex-wife and her husband and his other kid, and he's got his daughter in the van, and there's just stuff flying everywhere either side of the van, and they're like, you know, and he's like, oh my gosh, you know, he needs to get them back in time, and literally the flooring is crumbling around him, all the buildings are crumbling, and he's telling the daughter not to look, and you know, and in the end, the actual whole ground just opens up and starts cracking, and there's a gap between him and the plane he needs to get on, and he ends up having to quickly go over it in the air, and it's like, oh my god, is he going to make it or not? Anyway, the daughter manages to make it on the plane, but it's looking unlikely that he's going to make it at one point, and you see him going down this crack. And then you see it, you know, and the plane is going to leave, and it's going down like the little runway that isn't really a proper runway, I don't think, but you know, and it's like, is he going to make it or not? And he does, like, you see his hand come up, because it looked like he'd fallen down in between the cracks, and his hand comes up, he's got this map still in his hand, and then he runs to the plane, his ex-wife is holding her hand out, and he does make it onto the plane, and then they start flying up in the air. They have to get the plane out because the buildings are all crashing down, and because, you know, there's not much of a runway left anymore because a lot of it's destroyed by the time he got back to the plane. And it's like they're going at it as hard as they can, and it's like, will they make it in between the buildings? Will they make it in between the volcanic ash that's erupting everywhere? And so they do make it out, and they're like, oh my god, you know. And then when he gets up there, he's like, oh, but we're gonna, you know, he looks at the map, gets the map out, and realizes he's gonna have to go all the way to China if he wants to escape all these buildings basically being demolished and all the world coming to an end. You know, there's only certain places that are going to be safe, and this is like the South China Sea, I think, or something like that. You know, so he's got to get to China basically, if the whole family wants to be saved. And he's like, you're going to need a bigger plane to go to China. So now they've got this other problem where they need this bigger plane to go to China, but they're currently in this small plane. So like, how do they get from this small plane to a place that's got a bigger plane so they can actually get free again and go to China? Because they're too in danger where they are, right? It's just like buildings are crashing, everything's going, you know, it's going to be nothing soon. So he manages to get back to his place that has planes, which is like an airport place. And the guy he works for, his two kids are there. They have a bigger plane, and they have a pilot, but they don't have a co-pilot because something happened to their co-pilot. And so John Cusack's character puts his ex-wife's husband forward, who's on about 2 flying lessons, said he can be a co-pilot so that they can all get on this bigger plane together. So the guy agrees in the end. They all get on this bigger plane, and as they're on this bigger plane, you know, they're kind of like reminiscing and everything, and you know, they're kind of like the wife, the ex-wife, and the ex-husband, now they're kind of reminiscing about things. They've got a woman, so the Russian guy is on there with the two children, and because he's been a chauffeur for them, and obviously it's actually his pilot that's doing the flying of the plane. And so he's like got a green card, so it gives him and he's billionaire, so it gives him lots of access to places, and they're all in this plane together. And he's got this Russian guy's got this like girlfriend who's got a dog, so they're all on this plane together, and they're kind of having different conversations. And then the pilot and the co-pilot, which is his ex-wife's new husband, and this bloke who's a pilot for a Russian guy, they're all on the plane together, but the new husband and the pilot work together to try and get this big plane off the ground. Takes ages, and eventually do it, and they're up in the air. But what happens is they need to go eventually to get more fuel. But unfortunately, they can't get the fuel, because when they keep trying to get the fuel, they look down and all these countries are blown up and they're just demolished, and they're just like ash. They're like flames or ash, and and so you see these great big orange flames, these ash everywhere. And it's like, oh my God, like you can't then get fuel. What the hell are you going to do? And meanwhile, on this plane, there's got loads of expensive cars that the Russian guy owned, basically. And it's got loads and loads of expensive cars, and like, it's like, what are you going to do with all those cars, basically? But they're on the plane. And so anyway, eventually the pilot's like, everyone get off, because I need to land the plane, because we've got no fuel. The engine's cutting out. There's nothing we can do. I need to land it, And so anyway, he tells everyone to get out, get in a car, and they has to open the back of the plane to let one of the cars go out, so all the family can get to say, all the families, I should say, the Russian and the other family, John Cusack's character's ex-wife, her new husband, and the children, and the Russian's girlfriend, the dog, and his two sons. They all go off, and him himself go all off together in this car out the back of the plane. So they all go out, and they get free, and it's quite a dramatic scene, because all the other cars are then come unchained and start flying everywhere. And as they're out in the car and they're still kind of going down, they still kind of at speed, all these cars are flying, unchaining themselves and flying out the back of the plane, either side of them, and, nearly going into them. And so that's quite dramatic. And then the pilot, who's a really nice pilot, his plane stops at the very end of the mountain, which is, it's going to just drop down if he's not careful. And so he looks really happy he's finally got the plane to the edge, and it stops. But then sadly it goes like this, tilts overhead first, and goes down and goes into flames, and the pilot is dead. I was quite gutted about that, because he seemed a really nice pilot. And the Russian guy finds out that his girlfriend was having an affair with the pilot, and what happens is they see these big helicopters transporting animals, like giraffes and elephants and hippopotamus, I think they have there as well, and they're transporting them in through the air, in netting, but through the air, to save some animals for the next generation to put on these ships. And and as they do that, the whole family's sort of like waving them down, but in the end it's just a Russian guy who's got loads of money with his two sons that go off in these helicopters, leaving the whole family basically to fend for themselves, and having no more hope that they can get off get away, and that they're all going to die. And so you're then thinking, what the hell are they going to do now? Because they're in the middle of the mountains. There doesn't look like there's anyone to help them for miles. The whole place is being destroyed. It's like, what's going to happen? The whole world's coming to an end. So anyway, they see this family, which is like a Chinese family, and I think it's Chinese or Hong Kong family. Anyway, we'll say Chinese family, and then yeah, I'm pretty sure they're Chinese actually. And so anyway, the mother, who's like the grandmama of the boy, decides, the Chinese boy decides to try to persuade her son to allow them all onto their vehicle, open vehicle, to save them, and to, because their son, the Chinese, one of the sons, the eldest son's got a plan to escape on the ship. And she says, you know, like, let them all through, let these families come on there. And so yeah, so eventually he does agree to it, and they have to get on the ship. And so in the end, they're trying to get on the ship, and the Chinese eldest son is leading them to get on this ship. And so they're all getting on it, but they have to get down a way that requires a drill, and it requires getting on the ship down these passages and stuff on the ship. And in the process, they actually end up causing problems with one of the engines, because they end up having rope that's tapered around one of the places where the engine needs to grind together, and it ends up leaving a door open, and the Chinese guy ends up injuring his leg because the doors have been trying to be shut, and when the cogs were going around, it cut part of his leg. And the husband, actually, of John Cusack's character's ex-wife, he actually ends up dying at this point. It's really horrible because he is an actual really nice character. And anyway, so they have got on the ship, but the Chinese eldest son's injured. And when they go on the ship, water starts flooding because they can't shut the door, because they left the rope. When the Chinese guy had his leg damaged, they left the rope down there when they were trying to get in through these secret, like, these passages, which were, like, you know, where they shouldn't have been going. And so basically they've left rope down there, the rope that they were using to get in to help them get through these places with the drill and stuff, that's wedged in between these cogs, which is what makes the door close. And they can't close the door, and because they can't close the door, they can't start the engines. And so in effect, the ship that's built to keep water out, in the very end, ends up letting water in. They end up letting a lot more people on the ship, and the water ends up flooding in the ship. And we see this ship, and it's like, oh my god, it looks like everyone's going to die. They've got other sub kind of storylines going on at the same time, but you know, it looks like they're about to die, and they get part of the family gets cut off from the other part of the family. That the new husband's dead, the eldest Chinese son, he's got an injury to his leg, and the only one that can save the day is John Cusack's character, and he has to go back under the water to try and get this rope free of these cogs that turn, because they can't turn to close the door because the ship is just flooding and everyone's about to die. And he requires them going underwater. It's like a suicide mission. He gets, you know, warned that it's a suicide mission, meaning he won't come back, he will die if he does that. But he's the only one that can save it, because without the engines, they're going to go into this mountain and they're just going to crash into it, and they're all going to die anyway. So it's like he either tries to save them or he doesn't. And he does try to save them, and then he tells his son not to come with him, but his son does end up going to help his dad in the end. And it's really nail-biting stuff, and it's really heart-wrenching, because one of the women that goes on this ship, she is the president's daughter, and the president decides to stay behind whilst letting his daughter go on the ship, knowing he won't survive. And he makes a phone call asking, you know, can a daughter forgive her father? And it's really tearful, and it's really sad. And then, well, there's another story, part of a story, where this bloke, he phones his son up, and his son hasn't spoken to him in years, and he speaks to his granddaughter first, and his granddaughter's like, oh, who is it? And he's like, oh, I'm your grandpa. And she's like, oh, I got a grandpa. And he's like, yeah, you have. Is your dad in? Because he's my son. And so she goes to get a dad, and just as she goes to get a dad, who's in bed with the wife, you know, they all come to the phone, about to take the phone call, and then literally the house starts shaking, and basically it's all torn apart. So they die. There's a lot of death in it, and it's really sad because you think, like, at the end of the movie, like, you know, who would I want to tell if that was happening, or was it really the end of the world? You know, think of all the people that you would miss that would die in your life. Think of all the people you love. Think of every person you want to say, you know, I love you no matter what, and I just always will love you, you know. And it just made me really start crying when I was thinking about that, and tears were pouring down my face, and it was so intense. But I have to say, it was amazing, epic film. I would recommend watching it. There is no sex in this movie. You know, there is a love story going on it in some way, in terms of the ex-husband and the ex-wife clearly love each other still. And so, yeah, but no sex, no nudity, just really strong cinematography, action. I mean, obviously they could have put the end of the world where people were having sex and you know, the world ends while they're doing that, but they didn't. So they could have gone to that extreme, but they didn't, which I'm glad about, because that would just support the movie. There's no need for it, but obviously some people could have thought that type of storyline up. And so the movie's really good. It's a very tragic movie in some ways. So like I said, there are people that die in it, characters that you do grow quite fond of, and you know, and you do think, oh my gosh, you know, like, you're on the edge of your seat a lot of the time thinking, well, who will survive, who will die, how are they going to get out of this situation? And you just see the whole world crumbling around. It's very realistic, even though a lot of it's done on like computer, but it's just so realistic, and you're just like, oh my god, you just really feel for that, for the family, you feel for the characters, and it's just very much, you know, like very emotional. And you know, I really enjoyed the movie, though. I'd highly recommend to see 2012. I think it's a great storyline. You know, there's a bit of everything in it, you know, like speeding cars, aeroplanes, you know, like crashing, buildings falling down, buildings crashing, buildings like being destroyed and annihilated, volcanoes, tsunamis, people having to try and fight for their lives, you know, like, you know, plane crashes, but also plane, you know, getting in between buildings and surviving and thriving and coming out the other end. You know, it's just an all-round good movie. I cannot rave about enough. I mean, I really think it's truly the most spectacular cinematography I've ever seen in a disaster movie. It was just one epic proportion after another. It's like, how much worse can this get? You know, and it was just like, they were just completely annihilating the whole world, and everything was just being torn apart and demolished and tumbling down right in front of your very eyes, and you really felt like it was happening to you because you're in the character. You're basically in John Cusack's character, and so you see a lot of it through his eyes, and all the crashing and all the intensity, and oh my gosh, it's just really good movie. I'd highly recommend you see this. I think you'll really love it. If you love action adventure, you love being on the edge of your seat, you love special effects, you're going to love and adore this movie. Seriously, it's amazing movie. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my review of this movie. If you have, please give an emoji or a thumbs up. Leave a comment below. Don't forget to give this video a like. Don't forget to share this video if you think someone might want to know about this movie. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you get notified of every time I go live right now, post a new video. And if you watched the movie, tell me what you thought about it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What bits were good? What bits weren't so good? If you're going to see it soon, like, when are you going to see it? Let me know in the comments below. Love to know what you think. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video live stream. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.